All right, folks, it is Wednesday, January 17th, and I wanted to give everyone an update of the SEC versus Coinbase hearing that took place today. Now, for those of you guys who don't know, the SEC is suing Coinbase and alleging that many of the coins that they have listed on their platform are investment contracts, unregistered securities. So I'm going to show you guys the list of tokens that are named in this case. And what was taking place today was a motion to dismiss from Coinbase has been issued to the court. And so now the judge is hearing the argument for why Coinbase believes that this case should be dismissed completely. Now it takes a very strict, a very strong case to be made to actually, dismiss a case completely. And so many people think that even if, Coinbase makes a good argument, that it's going to be unlikely that we get the motion to dismiss completely granted. But nonetheless, it's exciting to finally hear, the SEC getting smacked down in the courts once again. Reminds us of the SEC versus Ripple case. I did try calling in on the case, but the line was full, which is a good sign, right? The fact that that's filling up shows that a lot of people care, and the judges pick up on this. So once again, it's not just the XRP community, it is now the whole digital asset community that needs to be willing to put up a fight, apply pressure, call in, write your senators, write your congressmen, and let them know that this is getting out of hand with the SEC's agenda of regulation through enforcement. Now, we got a couple gems that we want to cover here tonight. Huge shout out to all of our lawyers. Big shout out to Eleanor Terrett. She was on top of it today. And I'm going to show you guys what we're looking at. The markets were basically sideways all day. If we take a look here, wasn't much to be seen on the charts and the price actions. Bitcoin down to 42,700 right now, kind of just moving sideways. But the agency argued that 13 tokens listed on the Coinbase were securities, including Solana, Cardano, Polygon, Filecoin, Sandbox, Axie Infinity, Chiliz, Flow, ICP, Near, Voyager, Dash, and Nexo. So what I would be concerned about if I was those that issued those tokens and did the ICOs, because even the Coinbase lawyers in their argument in the case that they're making, they're suggesting, just like I have been and many other lawyers, that what is the security, what is the investment contract is not the token themselves, but the ICO that was done, right? These companies took investments, they returned you coins, and basically that gave you, a common enterprise seeking profits based off the efforts of others. So that's where the investment contract lies, the securities, and that's the jurisdiction of the SEC. But as you're going to see here in this case, once again, the SEC is trying to extend out their jurisdiction to where it does not apply and where Congress has not given them explicit authority either. So let's get right on into it, folks, starting off here with this one from Eleanor Terrett. In one of these exchanges here, we have the SEC lawyer saying that these 12 or 13 tokens are computer code. And the judge Fela interrupts saying, sorry, but isn't that kind of what your friends at the back table, referring to Coinbase, are saying and wondering what we're doing here? The SEC lawyer responds, yes, Your Honor, and I have a point and I'll get to it. The SEC lawyer cites Judge Rakoff's ruling in the Terra case that the ecosystem surrounding a token is what makes it a security. Judge Fela also just referenced Bill Hinman in connection with the position that a token in and of itself is not a security. Wasn't it Mr. Hinman who said that? Someone from your shop that's no longer there. Ooh, so Judge Fela impressed many of us today with her expertise on the technology, the case, prior precedents, other lawsuits, and obviously mentioning Bill Hinman as well. The SEC doesn't want to talk about that, and they skirted around that one big time. Now, this is the main argument here that the SEC is making, is that all of these coins get you invested in an ecosystem that makes it a security. So under this logic, just because you have a Pokemon card community, that would make your Pokemon card a security, right? Because you have an ecosystem surrounding it. And they tried to make the distinguishing factor that that's not the same. That's not what they're suggesting. And they were at one point talking about, collectibles, talking about baseball cards. And the SEC was saying, no, not in that case. But with these tokens, you're investing in an ecosystem surrounding it. Well, there's an ecosystem. There's a community around just about every commodity, currency, and security as well, of course. And so once again, SEC trying to extend their jurisdiction, and the judge here in this case pushing back. You absolutely love to see it. Now let's continue on here. Coinbase is stating that it should be considered that Gary Gensler himself went to Congress and asked for legislation to regulate crypto transactions, stating that the SEC does not have the current authority to regulate crypto. also citing Supreme Court cases. SEC versus Coinbase is the case that we're in right now. But obviously, what we have here is Gary Gensler himself exposing the fact that they don't have, direct authority from Congress to regulate this asset class, but that's not stopping them from filing the lawsuits nonetheless, right? And the SEC lawyer just brought up Judge Torres' ruling as well. Quote, where we disagree with Judge Torres is that there's no need to create two categories of people, whether you're sophisticated or not. At the end of the day, you're still buying the same token. Well, in that regard, yeah, you are still buying the same token that in it of itself is not a security. And this is what the SEC can't get through their thick skulls, their thick heads, is that the token in and of themselves are not securities. And this is referring to Judge Torres' ruling that ruled that sales of XRP to retail investors on the secondary market are not the same as the institution or sophisticated investors. But you have to understand, it was the contracts themselves that Judge Torres was ruling was the unregistered securities offering, right? It wasn't the token itself. It was the contract that Ripple had with the institutions that had lockup periods, stipulations, and other parts of the deal, other aspects of the deal that made it the investment contract. Now, this is where Judge Fela really pinned down these SEC lawyers on Bitcoin, saying Bitcoin effectively, Bitcoin was effectively currency as it is a replacement for fiat. He avoided a direct answer and answered that, quote, what makes Bitcoin different is that it does not have an ecosystem, whereas when you buy these other tokens, you buy their whole ecosystem and the totality of the inducement. So they literally are making the case that Bitcoin doesn't have an ecosystem or a community around it, which is an absolute joke, right? John Deaton comments, every argument made by the SEC lawyers equally applies to Bitcoin. When asked the difference, the SEC lawyer said that Bitcoin purchasers is not investing into the network. Yes, that actually came out of his mouth. And so this is why I've been saying that the SEC lawyers have been contradicting themselves all day, just like in so many other cases. But this case was no exception, as they were completely contradicting themselves with nearly every argument that they were making. We were really impressed, though, with Judge Fela asking the important questions. Quote, what is it about crypto that makes it so qualitatively different to put other putative securities the commission has regulated over time? The Coinbase lawyer responds, it's not what makes crypto special, it's the nature of the transactions that the SEC is now designating and calling a security. This is a special kind of transaction, one that doesn't have an ongoing legal relationship between the issuer and the purchaser. And the SEC is offering an interpretation through a campaign of enforcement action that is not just designating authority to itself, but expanding its jurisdictional perimeter. So what did come up was the major questions doctrine. And for those of you guys who don't know, this groundbreaking case came out in 2000, but then there was a most recent interpretation of the law in the 2020 case, West Virginia versus the EPA. And this is where the Supreme Court and Chief Justice Roberts summarized the major questions doctrine, and they struck down the EPA, and it says the agency instead must point to clear congressional authorization for the power it claims, right? So once again, the SEC doesn't have clear jurisdiction granted to them through Congress. They're just trying to extend out here into a new technology where you kind of, we kind of have a new asset class. We kind of have something new here. I've been arguing, though, that you basically just have digital currencies, commodities, and securities. There's nothing that's really changed as far as those classifications. It's just now we're dealing with digital tokens. The only question that I have, and I think that remains, is if some form of decentralized prong should be added to the Howey test. And that would have to be done through either the courts or through Congress. And I think that the judge right here is taking a look at this thing, and she doesn't want to dismiss this completely and basically strike down the SEC not having any jurisdiction, but she's trying to really hone in and focus on where the SEC does have jurisdiction. And once again, as the Coinbase lawyers were saying, the ICOs were the security offering, was the investment contract. There was a deal there that meets the Howey test. Whereas what they were doing is they were providing staking services that were at the protocol level. There was no investment contract. There was no shared profits with some company, with some enterprise. There's nothing there. What you have is you have a technical function through this, blockchain technology that gives you a return for your staking. Now, my key takeaway here is once again, as we've been arguing, the ICOs are it. And those projects, those 13 tokens listed there's another 15, 16 tokens listed in the Kraken lawsuit. I would be very worried if I was invested in those projects, and especially if they did ICOs where they raised money from American investors. Because the SEC, in my opinion, is going after the exchanges first, trying to get more money, trying to really stay broad. But after they're done with them, I believe that they're going to be going directly to the issuers, especially if they did ICOs where they raised funds from American investors. So make sure you guys watch out for that. If you've invested in any of these tokens, go through, look at the history. Did they do an ICO? Was it done in the United States? And like Cardano, I believe they did theirs in Japan. And I don't know if any American investors were allowed to participate, but that's what we need to watch out for here. And then the judge did adjourn the hearing for the day. She has not ruled yet. And I think that they're going to be picking back up tomorrow, picking back up where they left off. And then she's going to give the determination on the motion to dismiss. So once again, it was really good to hear the SEC getting smacked down once again in the courts, but they are just, they aren't going to back down until a judge tells them you're being arbitrary and capricious, until they get smacked down filing their interlocutory appeal. Judge Torres smacking them down once again. They're going to get smacked down here again in this case and hopefully defeated once again. But watch out, because to me and to many of these lawyers, it's very clear they're going to be able to go after the issuers that did ICOs. Maybe the token themselves aren't going to be securities. That's my belief. But the ICOs that were conducted, unregistered securities offerings, 99% of them. And if they raised funds from US investors, you can bet your bottom dollar that the SEC is going to be going after them. So watch out. Once again, this is part of cleaning up the crypto space as we enter into the next bull run. Absolutely love to see it. This is what we have to go through. And the SEC is making us have to put up this fight against them. So let's continue applying pressure, continue sharing out this content, making sure that you smash the thumbs up if you appreciate the updates. And we're going to keep you guys up to date. I got another video that's going to be dropping later today as well. So stay tuned for more. I appreciate everyone for tuning in, and everything can be found at my website, zachrector.com, for community resources, wallets, precious metals. We got you covered. Get in touch with our people and we'll get you hooked up. Thank you so much, guys. I'll see you in the next one. God bless.